Unit 3D, the Scientific Revolution and the Enlightenment. European expansion was driven by a desire for economic and political dominance. New technological advances made exploration possible. Exploration increased global interactions, which resulted in significant economic, political, and social transformations around the world. As a result, dominant societies emerged, which led to a struggle for world power. So, starting on page 2. The scientific revolution emerged out of the advancements made in the areas of science and math in the late 1500s and early 1600s. Following the age of exploration, new truths and new research challenged previously thought processes and studies. As evidence mounted, scientists began to question ancient theories and teachings of the Roman Catholic Church. These scientists began to reason and use logical thinking instead of placing their beliefs in faith. They demanded proof or evidence. So they made great advances in the areas of science, would be your first blank, and math would be your second blank. Question number 1 says, what did scientists begin using rather than placing their beliefs in faith? And they began to use, for number 1, reason and logical thinking. Question number 2 says, what did scientists begin demanding during the scientific revolution? And they demanded proof or evidence. We're going to go down to the second part of page 2. Claudius Ptolemy, and I believe you actually say it Ptolemy, but I like to say the P because I think it reminds me that it's him. So Claudius Ptolemy, or Ptolemy, as Miss Gray likes to say it, was an old world thinker before the scientific revolution. His belief of planetary motion was the geocentric theory, which taught that the Earth was at the center of the universe and everything revolved around the Earth. The Roman Catholic Church agreed with this and taught this theory. Nicholas Copernicus questioned Ptolemy in the church. He suggested a heliocentric theory, which means that the sun is the center of the solar system and everything revolved around the sun. Galilei improved the telescope and used it to prove Copernicus's heliocentric theory. So first we're going to highlight the text that defines geocentric theory. And geocentric is where the Earth is in the center and everything revolves around it. So the first thing you want to do is highlight that. And if you don't have a highlighter, I would underline it. Then we're going to pick a different color, and we're either going to highlight or underline again the heliocentric definition. So heliocentric is where the sun is in the center and everything revolves around the sun. And now we're going to answer question number 3. Galileo improved the telescope and used it to prove the heliocentric theory by Copernicus. Isaac Newton's laws of gravity furthered Galileo's law of motion and continued to challenge the old church theories. With law of universal gravitation, Sir Isaac Newton described gravity as a mutual attraction between any two bodies in the universe. So what is the importance of Newton's law of gravitational or universal gravitation? It's this mutual attraction. So it explains kind of how we're able to stay on Earth and why in space things float. So it explains kind of how everyone is here and we're able to stand on the ground without flying around everywhere. The next part is about an Englishman named Francis Bacon. And he believed that unproven ideas from the past should be put aside until they could be proven. He believed that to find the truth of anything, you had to examine the facts. The scientific method was a major contribution of this time period, establishing a systematic way to find proof using reason. The scientific method is still used today to test theories and hypotheses. The scientific method is a logical procedure for testing theories that includes beginning with a question, forming a hypothesis, which is an assumption or a guess, testing through experimentation, and finally analyzing the data to reach a conclusion. So we need to write our own definition of the scientific method and what it's used for. And I would basically say it's a process where you get to find the answer to something and prove that it's true. And it is used for just that, for finding the answer to something, for when you have a question and you need help. It tells you the steps that you need to do to find an answer. So here's the long official definition if you want to summarize that part in your own words. A significant conflict arose between the scientific thought and the traditional religious beliefs during this time. The Bible, as interpreted by the Roman Catholic Church, served as an authority in all parts of life for society prior to the rise of science. So that basically just means before this time period, everything that happened in the church or was taught by the church, people just accepted. It's what they used to explain almost all their daily life. They used to believe that if you were sick, it was the God's way of punishing you, which now we know that's not true. That's science. So continuing on this paragraph, it says, the teachings of the church were based on faith and revelation. The church felt threatened by science because it offered evidence for its theories. With the publication of these new theories, the teachings of the Bible and the church were called to question. This was a challenge of faith by reason. So question number 5 says, why was the Roman Catholic Church afraid of accepting new ideas and beliefs? The Catholic Church felt, what did they feel about science? They felt threatened by science.